Having been in a committed relationship for the past 9 years, these are the things I would never do after learning the hard lessons. On a very serious note, if I were you, the first thing I would do is that I will never let my relationship lack communication. There have been many instances that I've realized that if I do not communicate certain things to my partner, the relationship was falling apart. I mean, they did nothing wrong and the issues has got to do with me, but my inability to talk it out or give them the chance to also talk about certain things was costing my relationship. There are times that I did not feel like speaking to that person, not because I'm doing something serious, because I just do not want to talk to that person. And it doesn't work like that. I have no idea what is happening to the other person's end, why they are calling me, whatever that they need from me. But because I just felt like I didn't want to talk to this person, the relationship was falling apart. This is a very hard lesson that I've learned, that your relationship should not lack communication. Anytime, make sure the person hears from you. Always try to say something. Don't go silent on them. Don't let them speculate things. Don't let them accuse you wrongly. You are in a relationship, so at least let the person know whatever that is going on in your life at any particular point in time, so that in case they are being asked a question, they would be able to answer that at this time, I'm very sure my partner is at this place. Communication strengthens the relationship and promotes its longevity. And so do not let your relationship lack communication. The second thing I will never do, having been in this 9 years committed relationship, is that I will never disregard boundaries. The more I disregard the person's boundaries, the more I realize that I'm also bringing problems upon myself. Because I didn't understand that this person comes from a different background, and so they have their own ways of doing things. Sometimes when they do not want to talk, it's because they want to gather a positive energy and come back to me. But I wanted them to speak at that time when they didn't want to speak. I wanted to force my boundaries on that person. Because I am the man, I thought maybe I should be the one to decide things. I mean, whatever goes for me should be able to go for you because I'm the man of the house. And those things were not helping the relationship. So respect boundaries. Don't disregard them. If the person wants some time off, some time to do certain things, allow them. If they do not appreciate you calling them certain things or doing certain things to them, understand and do not disregard them. Because those boundaries are things that she set for herself for some time. And within this shortest period of time or within this relationship, you cannot break them away. It takes time for them to be able to also adjust those boundaries to fit into yours. So don't just jump up and then want them to accept your terms while you do not accept their terms. Remember, what you are imposing on them is also your boundaries. And what if they also say that they are disregarding your boundaries? There's nothing like a relationship. And I forgot that those boundaries that she set for herself were the ones that got me attracted to her. I loved her. I wanted to be with her because of the boundaries and the things she set for herself. But now that I have her, I just want to disregard those boundaries and impose mine on her. It doesn't work like that. So do not disregard the boundaries your partners have set for themselves. Rather, have a very open and honest conversation and see how best you can adjust to fit into everyone's boundaries. The next thing I would never do, having been in this long-term committed relationship, is that I would never neglect my personal growth. I mean, not only my personal growth, but my partner's personal growth. We are all growing and we are not the people we used to be. And so the moment you disregard or neglect your personal growth, you become unattractive to that person. Because time changes and you cannot be that same person anymore. So I realized that I have to set up my goals. I have to improve myself. I have to educate myself. I have to exercise. I have to do certain things that has got to do with my personal growth. Because I've learned that if I ignore or neglect my personal growth, it leads to overdependency on my partner. And it does not help the relationship to grow. Because anytime my partner will feel exhausted because I'm expecting her to do certain things and come to my level, and the relationship doesn't move on as I want it to move on. And once I pay attention to our individual growths, it helps the relationship to grow. And we have been able to come this far because we considered each one's personal growth. A major lesson I've learned the hard way, having been in this long-term committed relationship, is avoiding conflict resolution. There are issues that we have to talk about, but I was trying to avoid this conflict resolution. And every time this conflict is postponed to another time, I'm expecting that the person will totally forget about the conflict or the issues that came up because I chose to avoid it. But with time, I realized that it wasn't helping at all. And so I learned to communicate and learn to resolve conflict before the next day. We set out a law, a rule, a principle in the relationship that we are going to resolve every issue that comes up that same day before the next day. And ever since we adapted that kind of thing, the relationship was moving on successfully. So all this while the quarrels, the argument, the blah 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 was because I wasn't having time to resolve the issues. And sometimes I even have the time, but I was just avoiding it because I did not want to prolong issues. And I cannot expect the person to just forget about everything that is happening. Most of you are having that same issues. You keep avoiding conflict resolution. There are issues and you expect the person to move past that issue and then move on. How is that even possible? The person feels hurt. The person thinks that you were not fair. The person thinks that you were wrong, and you are not ready as the person who claims you are the leader, being the man, and the woman who claims that you also want the relationship to move forward. You are not ready to talk about the issues. Come, let's sit down and talk about the issues. You are telling me that you are not ready to talk about it. We are only prolonging the issues and then we are having no solutions for the relationship. So having learned that, I've realized that you have to take time, make time, and then resolve conflict and not avoid these conflicts in the relationship. Another serious lesson I've learned in this long-term committed relationship for these past years is taking her for granted. Sometimes it may come unintentional, not that you just want to take them for granted, but if you do not stay conscious of yourself to recognize the efforts of that person, you will end up taking them for granted. It wasn't my intention to not recognize or pay attention to her or not appreciate whatever she's doing, but because I felt like, we have been in this thing for a long time. We all do things for each other, so you did it, so that's okay. But that is not how things work. I realized that gradually I was losing her. I realized that gradually she was withdrawing herself out of that relationship. And so I learned not to take her for granted. Whatever thing that she does for me, I learned to appreciate it. Whatever thing, effort that she was putting into the relationship, I make sure that she understands that I appreciate those efforts. I kept giving her compliments. I kept giving her accolades. I kept appreciating her for the various efforts. I gave her recognition. And I realized that things started changing. And it was so amazing because I wasn't realizing the fact that I was taking her for granted on so many things. And instinctively, they would try to pull themselves out when they realize that you are taking them for granted, when they realize that you do not appreciate their effort. You do not even see them because you think everything is centered around you kind of thing. So do not take your partners for granted. And if you are not getting anything in the relationship from your partner, it's because you are taking their efforts and their contributions for granted. You think, yes, it is their responsibility. You think, I'm doing something for her, so she's also supposed to do something. You are breaking the relationship apart. So learn to consider your partner's feelings and do not take them for granted. And I can assure you that your relationship will also be successful. I learned this lesson the hard way, and I can say that I was lucky that my relationship does not fall apart because I got to know them earlier on and I worked on it. So having been in this 9-year relationship, having been married for these past years now, I can say that if you are able to correct these mistakes and do great things and positive things for your partner, your relationship will last much longer.